What is happening, Dr. Watkins?
Hey, good morning.
Good afternoon. Happy Kwanzaa.
Okay, happy Kwanzaa.
What's happening, my friend?
What a day. What a, there's so much in the world that's going on, and we seem so far away from it. We are. But this whole thing in
Really,
Ukraine,
I hadn't heard anything. What's going on?
Wow. What do you watch? It Sesame Street?
Yes. No, Bluey.
Oh, Bluey. Yeah, well, I mean, Russia has invaded Ukraine, and, I think that I'm happy that it's President Biden and not the former administration or any part of that former
Let's
administration.
get into that for a second because, this guy, Trump, you're referring to, he won't really go away as far as media presence, even though they were attempted to cancel him from Twitter and every other social media platform. The news outlets refused to cover him.
Yeah, what's this new media thing? True
Lies?
Yeah, True Lies. That's what they should.
That's what he should have called it.
He's got a new Twitter-like platform, but they've had to postpone the opening twice because there's nobody involved with that knows how to run.
I can't follow that. Right, like a year ago, he launched it and then
Took it back,
and then he launched another one.
Took it back.
I thought it was up and running.
It's not running.
How is this thing worth any money? Aren't they saying it's already worth billions of dollars?
Well, it's overcapitalized. They're overstating. The problem is there's nobody. Apparently maybe people from Rumble, that platform, are involved in some way, because nobody that's officially, officially associated with it doesn't knows anything about it.
What are they just buying stock in the company?
Yeah, it's I guess because I think because it's associated with Trump, they think there's going to be some, but it could easily fail. So these kind of things are not.
That's
easy.
kind of brilliant though, because if you're just looking to make money, you buy stock in this True Lies media platform, and then you're worth all kinds of money, and then you sell it.
Maybe. I think
it's better than crypto at this point.
I think how's crypto doing? By
Terrible.
The way, is it? Everything. I see Bitcoin Ether's down 6% or something, down 106. It's they point out that all these things went down before they went back up.
Bitcoin. Yeah, everything's down.
Yeah. So, we were on the brink of World War III. So, I think that.
What do you think would have happened? This was your opening comment.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
I don't see how it can't be when there's a war in Europe starting.
I know,
morning.
But what do you think would be different if Trump was in office versus Sleepy Joe?
Well, he was actively trying to dismantle NATO to help out his friend Putin. So it's really hard to say, right? And even now, what's left of the Trump media machine and some of the nimrods like Tucker Carlson or Mike Pompeo are actively supporting.
Well, Trump himself didn't. There's a blurb about a comment he made about crediting Putin that he's got a great military and he's doing something very courageous by putting his best units on the border. And this was a couple days ago.
Oh my God!
Did you hear this?
I have really disconnected from any Trump news. I'm not listening to the left.
Good for you.
Yeah, because they talk about him more. As we approach future elections, 22 and 24, I'm afraid that the media side of things that I agree with are going to make the same stupid mistakes they made before and talk about him every goddamn day and give him billions of dollars in free advertising. So I'm trying to just stay clear of his nonsense.
But do you think if
really
you
involved.
boycott the liberal media that's going to make an impact?
No, but I'm already indoctrinated. I'm already brainwashed. I don't need any more brainwashing.
Right.
So I'm a little out of what he's saying. I have been watching this international situation. And trust me, I don't really listen to Biden when he makes speeches and stuff.
You can't. It's intolerable. So, you just have to go read it later.
I gave you that one. That's a present from me to you. But, you know, because I consider this pretty damn important, I've been listening, and I'm just grateful that we have actual diplomats, statesmen, people that know what the hell they're doing, and not a bunch of fools running the show. And who knows what could have happened. I mean, at any moment, every day was a crisis. Every day for 4 years was a crisis, right?
An actual crisis or something Trump created?
Well, a Trump created crisis 99% of the time. I mean, along the way, there were a couple of crises.
Like, you don't mean, you know, where's my McDonald's crisis? You mean...
No, that's his crisis. I don't think there are enough of them in that part of Florida. Boy, on a different subject, and maybe this is because of what I'm not watching on television, but it surely seems like he's fading more and more from the central thing here. I mean, other people are more in the limelight. Tucker Carlson, the idiot from Texas, Cruz. I mean, other names.
That's because effectively Trump has already been canceled. You know, literally and figuratively,
right.
He was removed from office by the voters, an official, free and fair election, of course.
I don't think anybody wants him back.
And he's off Twitter, and his two own social media platforms have failed to launch. So he's effectively been canceled.
Yeah.
But you know, now that's the liberal left's attempt to cancel, you know, Tucker and Cruz and everybody else because they still have a voice. So that's the machine that you see before you.
Well, they're gonna cancel those guys.
Of course, they don't stop until they get their way. They're hungry for power in a different way.
I think it's free enterprise. I think that the more, you know, you've said this a million times, and I am giving it the credit I think it's due. Better to hear these nutbags and, you know, the drivel that Tucker Carlson puts out or Mike Pompeo, better not to censor it and hear it and judge it for what it is.
Yeah.
But again, just look.
You want to see? So I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's right.
Biden's popping on. You want to pull up his audio for a minute?
Just for a second.
Without necessity, this is a premeditated attack. Vladimir Putin has been planning this for months, as we've been saying all along. He moved more than 175,000 troops, military equipment and positions along the Ukrainian border. He moved blood supplies into position and built a field hospital, which tells you all you need to know about his intentions all along. He rejected every good faith effort the United States and our allies and partners made to address our mutual security concerns through dialogue to avoid needless conflict and avert human suffering.
Duh.
For weeks.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Would you rather that we were responding to this aggression by Putin in Ukraine by sending in troops to militarily support Ukraine, or are you glad that it's like that's off the table and the only trigger is incursion into a NATO country?
Man, that's a complicated question, and if I answer it with my comedy hat on, I might give you a different answer. But I was prepared to talk about this, especially when you brought up Trump and the fact that circumstances could be different if Trump was, in office versus Biden.
Yeah, we could already be in a ground war.
We could be, and I don't want that. So I'll just come out of the gates by saying that I don't want that. I don't think we should have that. But I also don't think that it's necessarily off the table. It's off the table today. But it doesn't mean we won't find ourselves there. I mean, how long did the United States stay out of World War II officially until we were provoked? Yep. It was a couple of years. So, anything can happen. And, of course, you and I have been talking about this issue for several weeks, maybe longer. And the real variable and the question is, China and what they might do. And, because that's really Putin's only ally at this point. And you have long thought and speculated that, China is going to sit by and watch to see the U.S. and other Western nations' actions against Russia to see what they might be able to get away with, like in Taiwan.
Right.
So, I clearly don't want that. In my fantasy world, why can't we send in one of these CIA fuckers, there's like MI6 or whatever, and just snipe him out? Like, we don't need a ground war. Why can't we do what they do in the video games, what I see Tom Cruise do? I actually think Tom Cruise himself could do this. He does his own stunts in Mission Impossible.
Let's send him in. We can hang him from a plane.
Yes.
Over Russia until he spots him.
I know.
Riding around with no shirt on.
And he's like a Scientology, whatever they think about, Jesus-y and whatever's going to happen to him. There's literally no danger for him to do that. He will survive in an afterlife. He'll come back as superior.
Maybe Tom could bring the Scientology aliens with him.
Maybe he could. And so we don't need American boots on the ground. We need Tom's Scientology alien troops on the ground.
What do you think would happen if we took out Putin? I mean, that would create a hell of a vacuum. There's no succession. There's no succession set up because there's no intention on anybody's part there to have anybody succeed him, right? He's the ruler for life, much as Xi is in China.
Which, by the way, and both of those two examples are relatively new because they have operated under the facade of an elected democracy. But both Putin and Xi only in the last couple of years, I do believe, you can check me on that, but I believe it's only been the last couple of years that they have done whatever they need to do locally to say, you know what, this is a lifetime appointment, and everybody supports it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't until, I guess a better way to say it, so the Soviet Union collapsed in 91?
That sounds right.
So from 91 until now, there have been a couple of elected Russian presidents that did not serve for life. Putin served once before, I believe, and then was out and then came back in and then made himself the czar.
Right. Yeah. The czar. Yeah. I think Xi has a much more powerful protected position than Putin does. I mean, Putin is the head of this state because he's the head of the crime family, right? Every oligarch, the wealth of every oligarch connected with Russia leads directly to Putin, and they all owe whatever they have to him, and none of them can operate independently of him. But unlike the people in China, the indoctrination is a little different. I mean, there remains a chance that the people of Russia and the Eastern Bloc countries, may not. They could object. I mean, it is possible that Putin can overstep. He's not all powerful at this time. If he are the people of Russia going to rise up and protest a little bit? Maybe they're going to get their asses handed to them.
Yeah, what can they do
for that?
Right.
But they could still do it, and he can overstep. So if he goes into Ukraine and slaughters people for no apparent reason,
I hate to say it, it's got to be just a matter of days before that happens.
Well, I mean, people are going to get slaughtered, but I think it depends there's 44 million people in Ukraine. So, I mean, he can kill a lot of people before it becomes a genocide, but it doesn't really even have to become that. It has to just appear to have that appearance. So he's pretty shrewd, right? I'm not a Putin fan. I'm not a fanboy like all these other fuckwads
But I have to say, I love the gamesmanship here because Putin, he has maintained this, stone cold face, and he's been saying, I'm not going to do this. Of course. Why would we do this? And then what does he do? He says, well, there's, Russian separatist groups within Ukraine. Yeah. And we, so they're sovereign and we need to go protect those people.
Yeah. And he's claiming Ukraine has been committing genocide against Russian-born Ukrainians in the Donbass, that eastern region, with a couple of separatist areas that he has now declared that they're sovereign nations. I don't remember the two names of
right.
It. But, I mean,
But I also
they
like
haven't killed anybody, right? It's just so ridiculous.
But I also like this, strategy from the Biden perspective. And I try to point out.
Yeah.
I always try to be honest and point out where I think the Biden administration or Democrats in general should get credit. And I don't have too many examples of these because, of course, Democrats' solutions to solving problems are terrible.
So what are you going to give Biden credit for?
Well, I'm going to give him credit for, in the last several weeks, he kind of has been releasing information, essentially talking about Putin's plan.
Yeah.
Saying all along what he was going to do before he did it.
Yeah.
And I thought, at the time, you're like, okay, well, what is this? But as you start to see it unfold, it was his way of of trying to get out in front of the Russian propaganda so that, Putin couldn't use that as his reason or justification for invading Ukraine.
Yeah, and as recently as on the way here, I heard commentary that is turning out to have been a good plan.
I think so.
The openness, I hate to use the term, but the transparency exhibited by the U.S. government in relation to releasing intelligence.
Which is the opposite of what we've done for 200 years.
Well, and especially for the prior 4 years. I mean, there was no foreign policy or intelligence unless it was some quack Jack from who knows where coming out of some conspiracy theory. So I mean, they're actually working with intelligence. They probably we are as strong with NATO now as we have been in the last 70 years.
So did you hear this? The other thing I heard going back, I don't know how long ago, but it's maybe at the end of Bush and certainly all through Obama. But I've been reading that we, the U.S., have made prior commitments to Ukraine in the past, so over that period of time, about certain protections, not just providing arms, but certain protections that we would guarantee them to protect their sovereignty. Uh-huh. And so you bring up the point, I mean, are we going to have a ground war? But nobody wants that. But what commitments have we made?
Well, the way I understand it, the commitment that you're referring to is that there came a time after the fall of the Soviet Union and when many of these Soviet bloc countries declared their independence and break away from the Soviet Union, such as Ukraine, and they had tons of nuclear weapons in Ukraine.
That's right, and they agreed to give them away,
right? Give them back
in exchange.
And we assured them that, hey, you won't need these nuclear weapons to ensure your
safety.
Independence from Russia. So,
what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, here's how it works with NATO: until you're in, you're not in. and
then why would we have made that assurance?
Well, I think that our plan was to bring them in.
Well, we didn't do that.
Well, this is one of the what's the right word? One of the things about U.S. government that can be baffling, I think, to the rest of the world. Right?
You mean we make commitments that we don't keep?
I mean, the possibility is, we're pretty good about, unless you're Indian, I guess we're pretty good about keeping treaties and things like that. But Native American, but if you're, I think that our plan was to bring them into NATO, and I think that when those promises regarding nuclear weapons were made, I think there was an overriding desire to get all the nuclear weapons that the Soviet Union had distributed around the Soviet bloc somewhere. Better all back into Russia than scattered around where rebel separatist factions can get a hold of them and blow everybody the fuck up with them, right? So I think the overriding priority was to get those things gathered up and under control. And then I think that the desire at that time was to bring Ukraine into NATO, and I think they wish they were in there now. It's only been 8 years, right? That there was prior to that, and when all that was going on, it wasn't Zelensky and the current government, right? It was a puppet regime from Russia, and the people rose up, and there was a coup, and they threw them out, and the Zelensky government is the result, and I think that's the main reason that Putin gives a shit about Ukraine. I mean, apparently Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe or of Eastern Europe. I'm not sure.
Well, and that's obviously his fear. He doesn't want a neighboring country to be in NATO, and that's what he said all along and why he's justified. Remember when he was just building up troops against the border, that was his justification, is because, he wants to make sure that they're not admitted to NATO. But, who cares? Fuck that guy.
Well, I mean, this going back to what you said about the Biden administration, releasing a lot of information about the intelligence that we had acquired regarding, the possible plans that Putin had for this whole situation. The main thing is that to get people to understand that NATO is not the military arm of an aggression policy. It's defense, and
right.
It always is, and it always has been, and I would think it always will be.
Well, I said something before a couple weeks ago, and I think I was mistaken, where I believe I said that Russia had some veto power about admittance to NATO, but that's not true. It's the UN.
The UN, I think.
And I believe that they have some lifetime, they're one of the few countries, one of 4 or 5 that have a veto power that was built into.
Isn't it the Security Council or something?
Something like that for the UN. But for NATO.
The UN has become so relatively useless. I'm not a big UN hater. I mean, I think the concept is good, and I'm sure there's been and continues to be value, but I just think that Russia doesn't give a shit what the UN says. They play the politics associated with the UN to the point that they think they need to. It just doesn't. NATO is more important to me by far than the United Nations. Here's the great part. Putin is calling a number of his troops going into the Donbass region peacekeepers. We're sending in peacekeepers.
And isn't that, I think that's what Trump commented on too, that he's sending in these great, fabulous peacekeepers to do this wonderful job. What is he saying now?
No mistake. Freedom will prevail.
Thank you.
God bless the people of a free and democratic Ukraine. May God protect our troops.
Does he or does he not take questions?
Zeke.
He is. Dare we listen to these?
Yeah, sure.
To speak with President Putin at this point, and what interactions have you had with the Russian government?
I heard the first part. Do I have any plans to speak with Putin at this point, and what?
What communications have you had with the Kremlin as far as military operations in Ukraine and making sure this does not spiral into a larger conflict?
Well, it's a large conflict already. The way we're going to ensure it's not going to aspire to a larger conflict is by providing all the forces needed in the Eastern European nations that are members of NATO. NATO is more united than it's ever been.
So
I have no plans.
We're gonna show up in every other country.
We're there. I mean,
we're
sending people in.
Wall Street Journal.
I think that my biggest hope here is that. I think he's going to do whatever he's going to do in Ukraine. He's put all.
You know what else I'm struggling with?
What?
Is not calling it the Ukraine.
It's not the Ukraine. It's Ukraine.
I know it is Ukraine. Yeah, that's the correct way. I understand,
Yeah.
but it's like the Beatles, the Who, the Pink Floyd.
Is there another country? It's not the Poland.
I don't think so.
It's not the Slovenia. It's not the Ukraine. I know. I've from the
When you say it's the Ukraine, it makes more sense than Ukraine.
There are certain.
We need to use Grammarly.
Yeah, there are some Grammarly things where you can say that, but I think you can say the Ukrainians if you're talking about that. But it's Ukraine, not the Ukraine. I think my biggest hope here is that the fact that I think that the unity demonstrated by NATO and the other European allies and our Asian allies is really the most important part of this. I think Putin's going to do whatever he's going to do in Ukraine. He's put the resources there. He could invade the entire country.
But I read that he basically can't. You said that the Ukraine has about 44 million people, and I don't think Putin has millions and millions of military soldiers to send in there. From what I read, I don't think he could actually occupy the entire country.
His goal is not to occupy the country. His goal is to topple the government.
Well, now you sound like him. That's what he said.
Yeah, that's his goal. I mean, he wants Zelensky out
What's
of there.
the difference? If you actually topple the government and you take it over, haven't you effectively done the same thing?
Well, I think there's a difference between invading the country and subjugating 44 million people to your will against their will, and systematically, shrewdly, strategically going in and decapitating the Ukrainian government and taking over the command and control.
But I view it as the same thing. If you effectively take over the government and remove their prior representative government, it's the same thing.
Well, I think that then you will see the Stalin tactics that we haven't seen for such a long time. But I don't think he's going to need to do any of that. It's not a sure thing. We've pumped a lot of weapons and stuff into Ukraine. To physically occupy that country or take it over in that way militarily will exact a pretty heavy toll on them. And then We don't know what the other country. I mean, let's say he completely takes over Ukraine.
Is this the dude that Biden hates?
I don't know.
A worthy
Fox
adversary.
News.
At the time, I made it clear as an adversary, and I said he was worthy. I didn't underestimate him. And I've read most of everything he's written. Did you read? I'm not being a wise guy. You heard the speech he made, almost an hour's worth of speeches, why he was going into Ukraine. He has much larger ambitions in Ukraine. He wants to, in fact, reestablish the former Soviet Union.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. And I think that his ambitions are completely contrary to the place where the rest of the world has arrived.
That's it, buddy. Shut up.
A wise guy.
Yeah, I know. Is that guy a Fox reporter?
I think it's Fox. Yeah, that's why I pulled him up because they have a history. These two.
Do they?
Yeah.
I like to take that mask off and punch him in the nose.
At least he's wearing it. That other broad took her mask off.
Did she?
Listen, COVID is over.
Here, it's over in Orange County, right? Am I
Yeah,
right?
it's over everywhere. It's been
Is
over
it?
since 2020.
Is it? I am going back now. I have gone back, not to switch gears here completely, but I am now going into Orange County business establishments that if they put a sign up that says please wear masks,
You'll turn around.
I'll wear the mask. I want the Mexican food or whatever I'm going in for. But they're all down. I haven't run into a place this week that had I went to the
People
bank
are over
yesterday. I think so. I think so. I think that L.A. is making a fool of themselves, and what a surprise that is, right? Hey, guess what? Have you seen who's running for mayor? Mayor Yoga Pants is going to. Was he going to be the ambassador to
No, he was.
Fuckistan or someplace?
Yeah, but he turned that down.
He did?
Unless the offer's back on the table.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought
and he should have taken that job.
Where was it? Was it ambassador
I think it
to
was
what?
something Stan. It was a Stan for
You
sure.
Fuckistan.
It was you Fuckistan. Yes. It was one of the Fuckistans for sure.
Oh my God. Anyway, there's a couple of, or at least one billionaire now running that, he's not going to take any money from anybody. Caruso or something. He's a
real estate guy, I think.
Yeah. And here's what I'm going to tell you. In LA, whoever makes the biggest claims about solving homelessness in LA is going to win. Doesn't mean they're going to fix it.
This is for mayor, you're saying?
This is for mayor. I think that there's a single issue on the minds
now,
of voters in LA, and it's homelessness. I mean, I don't know how much you see of it, and I don't go downtown LA for any reason anymore. And
yeah, I don't either.
yeah, so unless I'm going there for to get somewhere else for some intensely personal entertainment purpose or something, I'm not going. And work never drags me down there. So I don't see it that much. But when you do get down to LA and get around the city streets, it's fucking ridiculous.
Well, can we send all the homeless to Ukraine?
Yes, please.
What is the solution?
Teach them to speak Russian and send them to the Donbass.
Do you remember back when your buddy, Rudy Giuliani,
Oh, my God.
was the mayor of New York City?
Yeah. America's mayor.
I believe that was one of his big platforms. This is going back, 2000, something like that?
Yeah, probably. He was the mayor.
Because he was the mayor of 9/11, yes.
Mayor of 9/11. Here's my legacy. I'm the mayor.
Everybody
of
has a
9/11.
nickname. You know, Mayor Yoga Pants, Mayor 9/11.
That's a good one. That's what we should have been calling him. Is he in jail yet?
I'm not sure. He's sweating somewhere.
Hair dye running out of his face.
He's another guy. I mean, if we're going to talk about incarceration in this country, which we have, and all the drug crimes, and you take that down the race trail and all that,
Yeah.
do we really need to throw a guy like Rudy Giuliani in jail? He's 79 or whatever he is.
It's going to cost me more to incarcerate him
Right.
than to just forget
Just
about
his
him.
medication alone. I mean, you got to support these
Just
guys.
his hair dye. You know how hard it is to
Yes.
get hair dye in prison?
I mean, go back all the way to one of our very famous podcasts, Freedom, 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 Death.
Which I refer to frequently.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans love that.
Yeah, you do.
And it's something that I think is very important to my political platform. But go back to, I'm being serious now.
Yeah.
One of Giuliani's platforms at the time was homelessness, and I think he got a lot of credit from people in New York City about how he, quote unquote, cleaned up the homelessness. I don't know what the hell he did. I don't know if he, put them in the backs of vans and took them to New Jersey.
I would assume it's worse, that it's always been worse in New York than L.A. the homelessness stuff. But I mean, this thing in LA where they take these black truck tarps and blue truck tarps and make these huge
cities
things, on the sidewalk. I mean, I don't remember seeing any pictures of that in New York or anything like that. And we're not seeing it enough because you see it on TV.
But what do you do with it?
What do you do with it? You grow a pair of balls and you get these fucking people off the street. I don't care. You know how many closed down malls, how many abandoned buildings, how many things there are. I don't want people to be mistreated, and I don't want to. It's not that I don't have empathy. I kind of don't, but for homeless people. But
you're saying throw them in the empty shopping
do
malls?
Something. Get them off the motherfucking sidewalk.
Well, that's interesting because you mentioned like little tent cities. So there are these massive cities in places like South Africa that I've personally seen, and you've seen them on TV, and if you've ever seen the movie District 9, right? That's exactly what it is. These shanty towns. And in
Brazil, it's called the favela.
Yeah.
Right? They're all over the world.
But even these, like the ones that I have seen in South Africa, they erect almost a city-like area, and they are running. They're getting power from the electrical line, from the power poles. I mean, it's not safe and certainly not legal, but they're running power. They're using tires and sheet metal and things to build cities. And there are people who live in those areas that have jobs and go to work, and it's
still live in these shanty towns.
and it's sad and disgusting to see. Don't get me wrong, but that's different than people living in doorsteps of commercial buildings.
I was driving home on the 91, and on the westbound side of the freeway there was a SIG alert because there was some kind of big accident. Lots of emergency response for fire trucks, cops, and stuff like that. So as I'm passing by that and looking and going, God, glad I'm on this side. And then I look forward and there's a bunch of black smoke coming up ahead. And so there's a little bit of a turn there. And this was just before the 91 or the 55. And there's a huge scrap.
See, we say the in front of the freeways here.
The freeway.
We can't say the Ukraine, but we can say the 5, the 55. That's a California thing.
Yeah, is it? California.
The California. They don't say that in the North Carolina or the South Carolina.
They say
or the Texas.
The California lifestyle.
That's true.
So there's a huge scrap salvage recycling plant right off the freeway that runs quite a ways. And there's a street between the freeway and this plant that often has a lot of homeless people living in vehicles and shit. And it's hard to tell who's there to get rid of trash and who's living in their trash, right? So there have been several, and particularly one pretty large mobile home, RV kind of thing. So as I drove past it, fully engulfed in fire. I mean, just no.
And they didn't trace the matches back to you?
Please, that's my solution. Burn them out. But oh my God, it was a huge fire, and no fire department or anything there yet because they're tied up to 3 blocks down the freeway on this other thing. So I mean, the homelessness is just really. I think that easy now. I think that. Whoever gets a hand, we're not really handling it that good in Orange County.
Why has it gotten so much worse? And it has in the last just couple years.
There's dumping. I mean, a big part of it is it's an insurance scam on rehab things around the country. So a lot of people come out of situations when they hit homelessness, they still have some kind of coverage or there's some kind of state coverage or something that gets them into drug or rehabilitation programs, typically 6 months programs. And they get them in, and sometimes these are state or city sponsored things, and they get them in, they get them off the street and try to get them treatment. And then when their 6 months runs out, they turn them loose. And so if they send them to a California facility, they turn them loose in California. Or if they send them from, Kentucky to Las Vegas facility, then who knows, they end up in Las Vegas or California. There's a lot of dumping. And
what do you think, or have you read anything about the homelessness? Is it more drug related? Is it mental issues? I mean, I know it's both, but what's the driving factor?
The way I've heard it, and with my limited interaction with homeless people around our office facility, when there's 40,000 homeless people in Orange County alone. That's nothing to do with L.A. And when there are freeways and freeway overpasses and commercial areas, you're going to have this. But my limited reaction, I break them down into 3 parts. There are some legitimate people that have fallen through the safety net and are homeless, and they got families or whatever. Then there are criminals, right? There are people that are predators of the other homeless people. They're criminals. They're selling drugs, or they're extorting people, or they're providing protection, or whatever the hell.
They're just capitalists.
Yeah. That's
homeless capitalism.
I jump on trying to get them under that banner. And then there are the mentally ill. And, California, this goes way back to the 70s or something. We killed all the mental health. There are no state-sponsored mental health facilities in California. So you're either on the street or you're in jail. And neither of those places.
Like at the psych ward is what you're saying, where people would actually live in a,
there are no mental institutions to speak of, right? They're
like an actual medical facility, like Michael Myers, that guy from Halloween.
I've never watched those movies.
No,
but, back in
he lived in a mental institution ever since he was a kid.
It was
and he killed people, and he wore a mask.
It was Geraldo Rivera that broke the story on a very large, lucrative California mental health scam that was being perpetrated, and on the back of that, and turned public sentiment against publicly or private or public mental institutions per se. And that's it. They got public sentiment turned against it, and we have nothing. So
isn't that better than nothing?
No, it's not. Well, you mean having them?
Yeah.
Well, the ones that I'm speaking of that Geraldo Rivera were involved with were criminal, they were terrible things. But, yeah, it would be good to have something. I mean, not handling the problem at all and just saying, hey, just leave them on the street. Well, this is what happens. And when you put all that together and you get the chemical recovery dumping, that's happening from around the country. And trust me, I told you, when people say, hey, sometimes they gather up these people in other parts of the country, give them a bus ticket and send their ass out to California. I don't really doubt that. I mean, do you have problems seeing somebody in Mississippi gathering up some homeless people and sending their ass out of town on a bus? I don't have any problem seeing that. So I think there's a lot to it, but I think nothing is being done. I mean, I think it's amazing that Garcetti, who I'm not a fan of, right? I think he's supposed to be a Democrat or something.
Of course.
But that he has been there this long, and the problem, in my mind, from what I can see, has multiplied it exponentially 10 times over. It's just so much worse.
Well, and look at places like San Francisco, and this is actually true, and maybe people have seen these stories nationwide, but San Francisco over the last couple of years has taken the approach of caretaking for the homeless by way of giving them what they need, like drugs. And they literally give them free needles, and they defecate on the streets. That's a true story, and that actually happens. I was just with a woman over the weekend who lives there in the city, and she's like, this is actually happening. It's fucking disgusting.
You're conflating a few things, right? I mean, providing addicts with clean needles is a control method to help stop the spread of disease associated with
but it's
intravenous drug use.
If that's a strategy, which whatever, I can be convinced that that's fine. But if it's a strategy, it's only half of the solution, because you're not providing an environment to do that, and you're not setting ground rules.
Well, here's the thing: if you're going to allow large encampments of homeless people to grow in your city or whatever, you better give them bathrooms. Otherwise, they're going to be shitting in your front yard.
Maybe that's the solution. Maybe in this welcoming democratic state of California, we say homelessness we embrace it. We invite you, Mississippi, send your homeless here on a bus. We'll give them free needles and whatever they need. But here's the catch. There's only a limited number of homelessness that we will allow. And once we get to that cap, no more can come in. And if they come in, it's then the death end of the freedom scale. Wow. You know what I'm saying?
Death end. Oh, wow. Freedom. You're dead.
I don't know, but I mean, why have the numbers climbed? I mean, especially in SoCal. Like you said, it's always been a thing, but it's gotten worse, and nobody's addressing it. But I mean, we like to think of ourselves as solutionaries. I don't have the answer. We can joke about it, but I mean, are we going to go in there with a crop duster and put the Agent Orange, fly it over people?
Well, there's a few problems associated with this, and with any problem like this, whether it's overcrowded prisons or, recovery facilities or halfway houses. It's not in my backyard. I want the homeless people off the street. Go in, gather them up, tear their shit down, get rid of their crap, gather them up, give them a bath, and put them into some kind of facility. But not in my backyard. Not in my neighborhood.
Where do they go?
Not in the 6-bedroom house down the street from me. That's not where I want them, right? So I think that they're, and I just saw a news thing on a local news program showing a company, a privately run company that is offering to solutions for homelessness. And
here in California,
and they want government, support to do it. So, they're appealing directly to the LA mayors that are, talking about cleaning up homelessness in LA, and they're saying, hey, here's our plan. We'll take these abandoned shopping malls and we'll rehab them and turn them into, temporary living centers, transitional facilities for the homeless, blah, 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 blah. All we need from you is $44 billion a year or something like that. And who knows, right? For-profit prisons are just fucking historically terrible.
Well, you used two words there. You used transition and temporary, and maybe a third word. I think you said rehab. But I mean, that's the thing about prisons too, in general, that I don't believe there's really much rehabilitation going on. It's just simply incarceration. You're holding people as a punishment. I mean, what are we rehabbing? In the case of drug crimes, especially. I don't even care if it's, heroin, whatever.
I don't think the public gives a shit about rehab, right?
I don't know.
I don't think they really
But isn't
care.
that how, don't you think, like in the right-wing Christian nation philosophy of locking people up, it's because drugs are bad, Jesus doesn't like drugs, and we will send you to this prison so that you can reform yourself, you will get your life whole, and then, and only then, we will let you out of jail?
Well, I think the idea of prison and the way it works on a national basis is prison is for punishment. I don't think anybody's under the impression that people are going there to be rehabilitated. I'm sure there are some examples of rehabilitation opportunities going on in prison, but I just really think that the public wants to know that there's a place where criminals, when they're convicted, can be sent to where they're punished. And that's supposed to be the deterrent. And without that deterrent, people will go wild in the street, and it'll be like those Purge movies or something,
right?
Which I've never seen either.
It's kind of a cool concept, though, right? Like once a year, you get to go out and thin the herd.
Only if I can go thin the Trump herd.
They have all the guns.
Yeah.
If Democrats knew, if we had a thing called the Purge in this society, do you think Democrats would be anti-gun? If once a year crazy Republicans were out in the street and could kill people?
I think Democrats are close to being in favor of anything to combat crazy Republicans, because there appears to be like rabies spreading through that community. The more ridiculous every day. What is the deal on the right? Maybe you have a better understanding of this. Why are some of the most high-profile right-wing talking heads like Tucker Carlson and Dr. Laura, and maybe they're the only two, but there are some other names that I don't really know off the top. Mike Pompeo. Why are these people so aligned with Putin? I don't understand.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I think the more credible, if you want to call it that, Republicans or more serious politicians on the right.
Is there any left?
Well, I mean, maybe, but I think those people overwhelmingly support the Biden administration and have the same view of the threat of Putin. But you're right. There are those that take the opposite approach. And the only thing I can come up with is this. Their whole strategy is to just be the opposite of what the Democrats are saying at any cost. So in the past, we've used words like obstructionists when it comes to legislation. But for just things like this, news items, the only thing I can come up with is they just want to take the opposite approach because that differentiates them. And I follow Twitter, right? So I try to balance it out. I'm watching crazy fuckheads, on the left. I'm watching crazy fuckheads on the right. And, Democrats have a messaging problem, in my opinion, because they tout things all the time that aren't true. They give half stories. We've talked about things like jobs reports and unemployment claims that are true but misleading because they don't start from the baseline of before COVID and blah, 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 horse shit. Elizabeth Warren pissed me off the other day. She made a claim about, Elon Musk paid zero in taxes. And, of course, that is misinformation. We have to use that word because they so freely do. And the guy paid a record fucking tax bill. What she probably meant to say is that was capital gains tax and not income tax. And maybe he didn't pay any income tax because he doesn't actually have W-2 income.
Right.
And therefore the teacher pays more tax. I just said it much better than she said it. And she's sparking controversy because she's actually saying a mistruth.
I think she's over, though.
I hope so. But here's why I even brought that up.
Yeah.
The Republicans, their messaging is it's worse because they're not saying anything other than the opposite of what Biden is wearing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Biden wore a pink shirt today. That's a sissy. Or just stupid shit.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. The Biden administration is obviously, opposing Putin's, world domination plans in Eastern Europe and his desire to put the Soviet bloc back together. So, I mean, if you're one single rule in your morality compass is to not agree with him, then you have to then be on Putin's side. I think that's what you're saying, right?
I guess.
So,
but you go back to like Trump and in the beginning when he would say things like, "I'd be willing to take a meeting with Putin," or "I'd be willing to take a meeting with who's the little fatty in North Korea?"
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un. To me, on the surface, whenever the world leader of the United States, who effectively is the world leader, what do they call him?
The world leader.
The leader of the free world. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. Whoever the sitting U.S. president is, if the statement generally is, hey, I'll talk to other world leaders, I don't think that's a bad position because I'm a fan of communication. We solve problems and we get places by communicating. Clearly, we're past that, and we've been past that for a long time with Russia and with North Korea. And, of course, you can call into question the content of those meetings as years passed, and Trump had several meetings with Putin. But the idea of saying that you would agree to talk to somebody isn't a bad one.
No, it's not a bad one. But being a diplomatic moron and not having a shred of understanding. I mean, the only thing that the Trump administration in their 4 years in power and, one or 2 years of influence prior to being elected and whatever the influence continues to be a year later, a year and a half, the only thing that he accomplished in regards to those two countries was to give Kim Jong-un elevated status that he didn't deserve and never should have had. He got nothing. He was played every step of the way because Kim Jong-un is 1,000 times smarter than Donald Trump.
But Kim Jong-un didn't gain anything either.
Oh, he did.
What did he gain? He didn't come out of it with a win.
World recognition. I mean, he was seen more around the world on TV. He's so happy.
Well, what does that get you?
He's so happy he lost weight.
But can I tell you,
international.
The only thing worse,
it gives him gravitas.
He's like the Tiny Tim of celebrities. You remember Tiny Tim? He was famous, but he actually didn't make any money. And he said before he died that that's the worst thing in the world is being famous without having any money, because everybody, thinks that you have all this influence, but I can't even check myself into a hotel. And little fatty, he's famous, but he didn't really. His country's not better off.
No, but he was able to show that side of the world, and we all Trump did was play into his hands.
He's like the homeless of world leaders.
Yeah, and Trump did the same thing for Putin. I mean, Putin's sphere of influence has increased exponentially.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that, and I think Trump, whether he did it intentionally or not,
He did it because he's clueless.
But it goes all the way back to the Russian influence on, what was that, 2016 election, right? No,
obviously there was Russian influence on it. There was interference through manipulation of the unregulated and unbridled, stupid platforms like Facebook and Twitter by Russian. But
we have to use the word influence, not interference. They didn't interfere in the election process.
Well, I mean, whatever words you want to use, everything that was ever said about how Russia affected that election turns out to be true. And, it's probably always going to be true. I don't really give a shit because, I mean, you can bet that if there's any type of espionage or anything like that we suspect them of, they're doing it, right? And if it's talked about publicly by intelligence sources, that's because they don't need to prove it. They just need to get the information out there. Only a fool would think that both China and the Soviet Union do not work to undermine our electoral process. And because that's the thing that separates us from those fucking communist countries.
And go back to what you were saying, and that's the kind of the timeline I'm trying to position here. So from 2016 on, I think Putin's kind of status or influence or power has only increased because I would agree that they clearly want to direct or influence the outcome of a U.S. election. And I have said in 2016 in particular that, of course, Putin's choice for president was Trump clearly over Hillary. So that was his desired outcome, I believe, and he got that.
Yeah.
And ever since then, so whether or not on the Russian side they're claiming a Facebook victory, I don't know, but the ultimate victory is they got their outcome.
Well, they have a place called the Internet Research Center, which is, a large cyber espionage facility, right? And so I don't know what the people that downplay Russian interference in U.S. elections think that's all about or what it's for. They're not manufacturing fake coupons for, skin cream or something there. They're trying to actively undermine, electoral politics in Western countries, not just the United States. I mean, they've done this in every Western democracy there is. And can we stop it? Is it the end of democracy? We need to acknowledge it. Right, and stop fucking around, and that's the same effect that they're having here with this open dialogue with people about what his intentions are. You tell everybody what his intentions are, and then you step back because you don't want to have World War III, so you want to let him prove that everything they've been saying is right. They said that as soon as the Olympics were over, they were going in, and he's just living up.
They even said it could happen before they were over.
Well, I think the strong money was on that it wouldn't, because that would have pissed off China. Right? They did not want a major communist country conflagration in Europe that takes the entire focus of every news channel in the world off the Olympics.
Well, I have an announcement to make. I want to give you notification that I am coming over on your side. I'm giving you a win, and I want to agree with something you said. That's a big item, and that is, I have now come on board with the idea that we should fully cancel the Olympics.
Okay,
forever.
Did I say that? Oh my God. Okay, which one? All both of them?
All of them. Summer, winter, 2024, 20.
Well, I'm going to tell
58.
you. I'm going to tell you something. In all seriousness, you opened that door, so I'm going to walk through it. I watched a fair amount of Olympics this year. Some of the Winter Olympics, because they're not team sports, which I don't really care about, I watch because there's in every toboggan race, in every.
Is there an Olympian that lives in you?
No, God, none of that shit. In every monobob, in every downhill ski, giant slalom, there's drama, and so much of the shit on television is trash and not worth it. And the stuff that is worth it, it takes too long between seasons to keep fresh material coming in. So I watched it, but all the while that I watched it, I hated myself for it.
Why?
Well, because, while we all looked at the farce that was the Chinese Olympics with the empty stadiums and the very modern, Olympic graphics and all of the bullshit, right? They're committing genocide in the Uyghur sector. They've killed millions. And we don't give a fuck, and that's wrong. We should not be. We should have boycotted the Olympics.
Weren't we asked to, or that was a topic?
We did not send
diplomats. Yeah,
but we should have pulled out of the Olympics completely in protest of that. We should not be and then providing 2 weeks of straight Chinese propaganda. Right? While they are in the process, I mean, when you look back on this, here's what you're going to see. The United States and all of their sheeple, right, watched the Olympics and bought the products and let, what's the word, capitalism roll on, right, at the expense of 1 million or 10 million Uyghurs.
That's because sports is huge in this country. No. And I asked you this about Tokyo.
Listen, we need to grow a pair of balls and stand for something. And when it comes to things like genocide, real genocide, we need to continue to teach our children about what happened in Germany in the Second World War and what continues to happen today, and the rising tide of anti-Semitism and the far right. And we need to not support full-blown communist countries that are participating in that kind of genocide, right? I mean, there's no difference between the Jews and the Uyghurs. It's just that they're just different than the rest of the Chinese.
So if you were the president instead of a doctor, would you, with the stroke of a pen, done something that said the U.S. could not participate in the Olympics in China?
We should have boycotted it.
Well, I understand.
We should never have sent anybody or put any television in there or done anything to broadcast the Chinese
Is there anything?
Olympics.
So I asked you, I was going to set this up. I asked you this back in Tokyo, Summer Olympics. Remember, it was COVID. And I remember asking you, is there anything the U.S. could do to basically prevent the athletes from participating? Can the U.S. government, can the U.S. Olympic Committee do something that says we cannot participate?
Yeah, they could just forbid it.
They could forbid it. Yeah. And where would that come from?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Like the executive, I mean, I don't know. I'm asking because I don't know. So to your point about China, boycotting it would be a voluntary thing, but I'm wondering from a level of government, could the government actually have said we will not allow this to happen?
I think so. I mean, we boycotted the Russian Olympics, the Soviet Olympics, right? We didn't send people. We didn't go. We forbid anybody from going to participate. That was a full-on boycott.
Do you think we are more?
And I don't even remember what it was about. It surely wasn't genocide.
Do you think it's because Biden is afraid of China? Or are we more afraid of China than we are of Russia?
Well, I mean, I think you better be way more afraid of China than Russia. I mean, China is way more dangerous. Putin is going to be dangerous as long as he's alive and in power. So when either one of those things change, everything's up for grabs. But in China, Xi, I mean, as soon as he's gone, there's another Xi to take his place, right?
I think Baby Xi, right?
Baby Xi. I don't know.
but if we didn't send athletes to China,
yeah,
is that a big fuck you that would have? Is that what we were afraid of?
Well, I mean, the calculus for that decision,
because all the virtue signalers
is complicated, right? I mean, we do not appear to have the stomach for any kind of confrontation with China. And here's the other problem. After the Trump time in office, we lost all the moral high ground we had on the world stage. I mean, it is just, listen.
Temporarily or forever?
Well,
do we have
for
that?
A while.
Do we have that moral high ground back now?
I don't I mean, it's
because I have
it's
disagreed with
certainly
that
better.
statement ever since you've made
Right.
it.
Well, it's certainly better. And I mean, it's certainly better, but it will take time. I mean, the damage that group of jokers did to the leadership position in the United States on the world stage is almost incalculable. Right?
Yeah, but I have always disagreed with that statement. I think there's a level of truth to that domestically, and the only reason I say that is I have not done any type of analysis or anything, but during that time I have friends and colleagues in several countries, different, maybe half a dozen countries that I would always talk about.
Well, most of those countries are South Africa.
No, that is one of the countries, but I got a guy in Spain, various places, and and these aren't people in politics either, but we would talk a lot about American politics because during that period they were all more interested in U.S. politics than they had ever been before.
Well, we don't want them interested in our politics. We want them.
No, of course we do.
You're interested in it because it was a fucking train wreck.
Well, they were interested in it because there was information. there was being shared. You could not get away from the news. So they would call me and say, "What the hell's going on with this? What's going on with that?"
Every day, the guy with his finger on the nuclear button is a fucking lunatic, and says things like "Kofefi" and he's
Bigly.
It's just ridiculous.
It is, and that's how they saw it.
There's a Nazi demonstration in Charlottesville, and this fucking idiot goes, "Well, there were good people on both sides." That's not somebody
I know
that should be running the world.
And that's how they saw it too. And the feedback
good.
that I got, and this is what I'm really trying to say, is that most everybody that I talked to didn't take it seriously. Other than, of course, this guy was the U.S. president, but they were all just saying they were just waiting for this charade to end. It wasn't a matter of we take him seriously. He's going to have this sphere of influence over the rest of the world. It was just a matter of tell us when this nightmare is over.
Yeah.
I don't think there was permanent damage done.
Well, okay,
I'm here to tell you. As a global ambassador,
I don't think there's. I mean, I think it can be fixed, and I think it's getting better. So. My limited time outside of the country, totaling a grand total of 0 time, doesn't give me a whole lot of insight in that. I understand.
You've never been to Mexico?
I haven't been to Mexico.
Like Cancun or something?
I've been to Tijuana. I've been to San Martin Island. I've been to Ensenada a couple times. And I spent like 3 weeks in Cabo San Lucas. So that's my entire.
Impressive.
I know that's a ways back. The Tijuana trip was, I got into a van with 3 or 4 of my friends. We were pretty drunk and smoked some weed, and then we were going to go to the drag races in Orange County.
Instead, you went to the drag queens in Tijuana?
We didn't really know where it was. So by the time we figured out that we had passed wherever the Orange County drag strip was we were trying to go to, we were way down around San Clemente. So at that point, somebody in the smoky stupor inside that van said, "Hey, fuck it, let's just go to Tijuana." So we drove.
That's a ways from San Clemente still.
Drove all the way down to the border, parked, walked across, right, and got into Tijuana at about 2:00 in the morning. Had my first Black Russian, which is vodka. Well, it was actually a White Russian, vodka, Kahlua, and cream or something, right?
The drink of the dude.
Yeah. So I'm in Mexico, home of Kahlua, but I'm pretty sure it was horse piss, oil, and sour milk. I'm not sure, but
because you can't have ice in it.
It was terrible. It was just, but I was like 18, so
you could survive
big
anything.
Thing there was you could go into a bar, so. It was a disgusting trip. So that's the only time I've ever gone to Tijuana. That's the only time. And then I made a trip to Ensenada when I was 12, and then back again about 15 years ago. And then on a Carnival cruise. That was the Carnival cruise, Mexico.
The booze cruise.
Thing. Yeah, the booze cruise. I was probably in my 40s or something, and there was just too many 20-somethings on there getting boozed up. So I barely got through that one without a conflagration.
How old were you when you stopped drinking?
Probably about 48, something like that. I'm a really slow learner.
That's pretty good. You were in your 40s.
Oh yeah. No, plenty of time to do everything. So that's my world travel. I never have been into Canada or
You can't now. You've pissed off all the Canadians.
Yeah, I can't go to the South.
You can't go to the South.
Even Derek's looking for me.
Have you pissed off Mexico, or you just won't go there?
It's very dangerous place.
Kind of is, huh?
Yeah, I do not plan to return. Cabo, I remember the first trip I made to Cabo. We were just, so you fly in now to the airport, and then you take the super highway from the airport down to what they call the corridor.
And by that you mean a pothole filled road?
No. There's a super highway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been there for quite a while. The deal in Cabo used to be that you flew into that airport, and then you did take a pot-filled road through the worst ghettos and in the most devastating poverty you've ever seen. But they built a super highway so that you don't have to drive through that. So when you want to go to Cabo now, you can fly into the airport, get through that mess, get on this super highway, and from the airport to Cabo, it's a super highway. I mean, there's nobody on it, and I don't even know what speed limit is because I don't understand kilometers per hour. So you get off put you right in what they call the corridor down there, and that's the road that runs, where the resorts are on the one side and things like Costco are on the other side, right? And it's pretty developed, and you get down there and you go straight to your hotel, and then if you're smart, you
never leave,
stay there, yeah. Or you really go wild and take your rental van or whatever and go to the city and then try to find a restaurant there in downtown Cabo San Lucas. It's quite the adventure. I have tons.
I haven't been in a long time, but I remember when you would go in there, their whole customs entry system consisted of literally a stoplight looking thing, and you pushed a button, you go to the turnstile, and everybody pushes the button, and it's like a roulette. You're just gambling, and if it turns green, you just get to go through, and if it turns red, they search you, and it's just random, and it's like even music, ding 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 ding.
All I remember is hundreds of people come and talk to me about, hey, we have timeshares, we have this, we have cars, it's like, look, I already have, travel arrangements. Just get the fuck
I'm not homeless. I have all those things.
And I lost my luggage there on one of the 3 trips I took down there, so there was nobody there. I'm standing in the luggage area, which was a conveyor belt, and it goes around in a circle, runs next to a wall. The wall literally has a hole, sledgehammered out of it. It's not like a constructed hole. It's like cinder block building, and they knocked a bunch of bricks out.
Did El Chapo build it?
They bring your suitcases. They bring them in a pickup truck from the plane. They pull up below this hole, and they stand in the back of their truck, and they take your luggage and they push it through the hole from the outside onto this conveyor belt. So we wait. Everybody's there. We're the only ones didn't get our luggage. So there's a security card in there, and I'm like, "Hey, our luggage didn't come." He goes, "Ya vámonos ahora." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, my luggage didn't come. Vámonos ahora." And I'm like, ¿Dónde está la oficina? Where's the office? And he's like, vámonos. And he puts his hand on his gun. I'm like, fuck, all right, I'm going. And that's it. There was nobody to talk to at that airport. It was, there was no office there for the airline, nothing. So we had to deal with that through the hotel.
It's good thing he didn't tell you it was airport policy.
Shit, no shit. Well, that's where this kind of stuff started.
Well, did you ever get your luggage?
So that was a 6-day trip at something called the Riu Palace. It was, it had opened the day we arrived.
You were the test visitors?
The construction workers were walking one way on the road, and we were driving up in the bus the other way. Literally opened that morning, and everything was half price because it was a promotional thing. They had just filled the pools. All the water was ice fucking cold. I mean, it's 90 degrees there 300 days a year,
yeah.
Right? And the water had just been in for a day, so it wasn't even, you couldn't even get in the goddamn pool. It was so cold. And it wasn't all inclusive.
But there wasn't a lot of piss in there either.
No, there wasn't. The water looked clean. And I talked to the guy at the desk, and so he said, hey, your luggage, he made a couple calls, and he comes back and says, your luggage should be here at 9:30 tonight. I'll call you when it gets here. Well, okay. So, I got a golf shirt, I got a pair of shorts and some tennis shoes or something. That's all I got. I had one carry-on. It was full of CDs and shit like that, right? Chargers, and there was no clothing in it. So I learned a hard lesson that way. Now I never go anywhere without a change of clothes. in my carry-on at least. So
You could have just stopped it. I'd never go anywhere.
So I go this. I go, hey, I never go anywhere. I says, hey, so we had seen a Costco, right? So it didn't come that night, and it didn't come. So that now my clothes are getting pretty rank, right? I don't have any way to wash them or anything. I don't have any clothes to change into. So the second morning, we headed over to Costco. So go to Costco. They're right in the corridor. I have been buying 2X shirts and shorts and stuff at Costco for a while here. So look, let's just go over to Costco. Who knows how long this is going to take? Let's go. Let me go buy a couple of shirts and a couple of shorts, and at least I can rotate them. We can wash them in the sink or whatever we got to do. So I go into Costco, and the selection is horrendous. I mean, there wasn't a single fucking shirt in there I'd wear.
Because it had printing on it, probably.
It was
a picture of like a cactus with tequila glasses,
all kinds of graphics and shit like that, right? Plus, there was no 2X, right? So I find a Costco person, and I'm like, hey, don't you have any 2X? All the Costcos at home have 2X. And he's like, well, no, have the 2X, and I'm like, well, where do the fat Mexicans shop? Because I need some clothes. I can't find them here. So I ended up buying a couple of shirts and a pair of shorts, another pair of shorts in a store. Literally, this was the name, Bait and Resort Wear. So half the store was fishing supplies with buckets of live bait, and the other half was racks with very expensive golf shirts. They weren't good golf shirts; they were just very expensive.
What I don't get about you is you will wear a hat, a ball cap with some kind of logo on it, but you won't wear a shirt with one.
The only hat that I wear that has any kind of logo on it is the logo from my timeshare in Hawaii. So that's just me virtue signaling that.
Right.
So, yeah.
But why wouldn't you wear?
I'm an owner here. So.
Why wouldn't you wear the same shirt?
I don't like shirts with
if you
printing on
got
them.
if you got to your timeshare in Hawaii and you lost your luggage,
Yeah.
would you go to the lobby and wear one of their shirts?
That had like the logo
Yeah.
from the resort on it or something. Well, if they had 2X, I mean, I probably would. So,
It's not like I'm asking you to tuck it in or anything.
Yeah, right. It's not like, and I don't really mind like if there's a little logo like on the chest or something, but when you've got writing at a slant or something going on, it's just not a good look. I mean,
It doesn't have to be a slant.
well, whatever. There's this the resort wear and modern wear, and I mean, like you've got a sweatshirt with, I think that's what the logo from your killer training, your
Exactly.
jiu-jitsu stuff, right? So
It's vertical. It's not all sideways.
Yeah, it's good. It's symmetrical. It doesn't bother
It's
me.
cozy.
Yeah, I don't want a bunch of. What did one of our suppliers came in and brought hats? He goes, "Hey, I have some stuff for you that I know you won't wear because you're not a human billboard." Like, oh, you are listening. That's good. I'll do fine.
But you wear, it's funny because you wear shoes with whatever, the New Balance or, your tennis shoes, Nike swoosh.
I bought a pair of New Balance. I bought one pair on Amazon. Davey got them for me. They weren't wide enough, and so we sent them back. And then she got another pair of New Balance. I've never bought New Balance in the past, so I just got for the first time in my life. I just got a pair of New Balance.
Look at
shoes.
you.
I haven't even worn them yet. So, yeah, I just don't. I don't like. I have a bunch of shirts with the company logo on it, but it just doesn't do anything for me.
You're not an advertiser.
Not really an advertiser. Yeah, and I know nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody could care less what I wear. Certainly they don't care in the Ukraine.
They just want you to be stylish, and it is the Ukraine.
The Ukraine. Oh, I did it.
Hey, I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah.
A story, non-story, I don't know, kind of went away. But did you see this in the last couple of weeks? And I think the Republicans were trying to make this a bigger deal than maybe it is. But the information that the Hillary Clinton campaign, this is the Republican narrative, that the Hillary Clinton campaign officially spied on Trump, like Trump said, and they tried to hack his servers, and then they also hacked some DNS records in the White House, and that was proof positive, like Trump had always said, that he was spied on. You see this story? You didn't?
No.
Then it must be true.
I think that it is literally, and I say this as serious as I can be, pathetic.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Still talk about Hillary Clinton, right?
Do you think she's the devil?
I think she's a washed-up first lady that, was a decent senator for a while because of her immense political experience, and that's it. No more, no less.
Was she a better senator or Secretary of State?
She was good at both, to be honest with you. I mean, she was a much better senator and Secretary of State than she was First Lady. I mean, I hated her guts when she was
what's the job of the First Lady? Just sit there and smile and come up with
wash the cum out of the blue dress.
Oh, Jesus.
I know. It's I think that Hillary is just who cares anymore? I mean, there was a time, and it hasn't been that long, right? I mean, she lost 5 years ago to Trump. I mean, you lost to Donald Trump. I mean,
but you can't easily write people off
the political landscape.
Yeah, but for the reasons you just cited, she'll never be erased. She was a first lady. She was a senator. She was a Secretary of State, and she ran for president twice at least.
Yeah, but
who was she?
She ran against Barack
in the first one, right? That's right, because then he brought her into the administration on the second time. So that would have been 2008?
Yeah.
And then again in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, if Barack had not risen to the top of the creamery vat like he did, then she probably would have been the president at that time, right? I think we dodged that bullet. The bullet we didn't dodge was Donald Trump, but we're still here, and there's still time to fix some of the problems. Like you've stated, you're confident that they'll repair themselves.
Do you think, because I've asked you this too, do you now believe that Trump has no chance of being elected president in 2024?
I don't think anybody of consequence in the Republican Party really wants him to be president again. I mean, I think that it was 4 years of white knuckle for every actual professional Republican political person, elected official, and operative, that he wouldn't blow us up or destroy us or go crazy, have his syphilis come to the surface in the middle of his administration, and he could froth at the mouth and get big boils on his face. I think they're all glad that didn't happen and they're past it. And I think because they're not sure of how much power he remains that remains in his hands with the actual base, the people. They're not sure about that, and but I think that deep down they all want him gone. I mean, I think deep down most of the Republicans feel exactly like Mitch McConnell does. Mitch McConnell is an actual conservative Republican political professional person, right? Like him or hate him, but he's not really.
It's a lot of credit for you calling him a person.
I know he's not really a sycophantic, dick-sucking piece of shit like Lindsey Graham, right? Who has the.
You can't say dick sucking. That's offensive.
Okay, well, did we start caring?
I don't. Okay. Your team does.
Well, listen, really, do I worry about being canceled by the Democrats? I don't. I don't care.
And thank you for that, admitting that it's the Democrats who do the canceling.
Yes, absolutely. But at any rate, I think that not really. I mean, I think there's just a whole lot of things, right? I think it was a very nervous time for that team. I think really most of them blame the whole Trump thing for the degradation of their political party and the crappy, unmoral state that it's in now, their loss of significance and so forth. Is there a chance they're going to be swept back into power, in these next elections? Anything's possible. Things are pretty fucked up. And the public has been put through a whiplash few years of, the growing internet, social media, communication situation and social media platforms and Twitter and Facebook and Getter and all the rest of this shit. It has expanded without control and without any real idea of what the consequences are. And we won't know those for a while. So yeah, things are different than they used to be. And I don't honestly think, I'm sure as hell I don't understand what all the consequences are. And anybody that says they do is full of shit. They don't know.
Yeah, and I hope you brought up social media. I hope there isn't more control. And you said it earlier in this podcast about, for me, I always want the information to be out there and accessible so we can see and hear exactly what people are saying and thinking. And in the case of social media, right or wrong, that's exactly what we're seeing. And of course, over its existence really in 10, 12 years, as it's kind of taken off, we didn't know what we had. We didn't know where we started with or where it was going. But the truth is, at least we know largely what people think and what they're saying. And a lot of it's horseshit and a lot of it's crazy.
But the problem I have with that, Travis, is, and we've talked about this in different ways and sometimes directly and sometimes kind of indirectly, I'm all for more conversation, more debate, more information. I'm all for that. The problem with social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and whatever else rears its ugly ass head, and megalomaniacs like Mark Zuckerberg and things like this, is we do not understand the immense effect that these platforms have had on our society, and we are not embracing and do not appear to be understanding. The problem is that when lies are spread on social media that has this kind of reach, right? And because here's the thing, you say, well, it gives the chance, you tell lies, other people have a chance to tell the truth. That I believe that to be true. The problem is lies that gin up anger and hate are the ones that people are mentally wired to pay attention to. It's our survival as a species, our attention to things that are dangerous, things that make us angry, things that we perceive in our environment that has kept us alive and allowed us to not go extinct, right? And it's not over. And so, yeah, when you get on social media and you spread lies out to millions and millions of people, and it happens in a day, right? And that's the stuff that gets people's attention, the lies, right? When the opposite information or the true information gets out there, it simply isn't picked up on by the public.
But the truth is,
because we don't care about that as much.
And that really is it's more of a psychological impact, because the truth is that those lies, those hate-filled lies, pre-existed before social media. Right. This is simply the platform that has such a large audience.
But they didn't spread like this, right? We cannot listen, Travis. I mean, maybe I'm not saying this right, so I'm going to take the liberty to restate it one more time. I'm not saying that misinformation or people's desire to say things that aren't true started with social media.
I know you're not saying that.
But what is different is the access to huge amounts of people being exposed to misinformation. That is new. It is.
But here's the other nuance. Of course, all that is true. Okay. But here's the nuance: is that you have to want to accept that information. Nobody's forcing these platforms on you. Nobody's making you.
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Of course, because you have a choice not to be influenced by it. And you and I are case in point. Yeah. We are not. We don't participate in that stuff. We don't. Putin is not in our heads about how we should vote on the election because we read fake shit on Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
Right.
You have to allow and accept that to come into your mind. Yeah. And the opposite is true, is that you have the ability to shut it off and filter it out.
Well, I don't disagree with any of that, but I think the raw truth about that is that there are a great deal of people that won't be able to do that.
You said sheeple earlier. I agree.
That is the danger. But see, saying that, well, they could do it if they want, and if they don't, that's not our problem. That's not true. It is going to be your problem. The completely vulcanized, separated state of the country is the initial results of this phenomenon we're seeing. And nothing you said about having choice to let the shit in your head or not isn't true, but it isn't, in fact, happening. People are not filtering it out, and they're becoming whatever you want to call it. I don't want to be bombastic, but I mean, they're becoming brainwashed.
Yeah, you're right. And now the pressure is on that for the platforms themselves to filter it out, right? That's the big conversation in this country politically from the U.S. government is to impose these filters because people are not choosing the filter.
The truth is, I don't think there's a good answer, right? I don't think that I'm not a fan of government censorship. I'm not a fan of, I don't think that we can, I mean, if we want to sit back and trust these social media situations to police themselves, we are fools. And so we got to figure something out. I don't have the answer. I'm not the solutionary on this one. I guess the point I'm trying to make out there is there are very negative effects on our society from recent developments in communication. And we have seen dramatic effects from irresponsibility from platforms handling this responsibility irresponsibly or not handling it or using freedom of speech or something as an excuse to line their pockets because like we said about local news and everything else, if it bleeds, it leads. Yeah. If it angers, it's who brings people back to these platforms? What brings people back to these platforms? People are things that cause anger. And that's all Trump did the whole time. Every tweet he ever put out was to gin up somebody and get them pissed off about something.
But everybody's pissed off about something. Everybody's angry.
It is, it's much worse. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know if you can't see it. I don't know how you can. It's much worse now than it was 10 years ago. And this
I don't disagree with that, but look what happened in that 10-year frame. I think that's a true statement. But if we look in that 10-year window, it's not just Trump. And politically speaking, if we like to carve things into politics of this country, Republicans, Democrats, from a leadership view, in that 10-year window, we had Obama, Trump, and now Biden. So Democrat, Trump, whatever he was, and then Democrat again. So I think the problem is bigger, if you want to call it a problem, and more influential than just from Trump's sphere of influence.
And maybe I'm, I mean, if I have made you think that I blame Trump for this situation, that's a mistake on my part. I know I said this before, but sometimes you say things and then you say other things that make your previous statement seem, not worth it. Trump is not the cause; he's the symptom.
No, you've said that before,
right? And so the cause is this unfettered release of lies and propaganda to the masses. And that effect is causing figures like Trump to rise to the top of social consciousness, and that's going to be catastrophic. That is new. It is different.
What's interesting about that, though, is I don't know how many more fans a guy like Trump gained during his years running up to the election and then his years as president, or was he literally just speaking to his audience that came out of the woodworks and finally said, here's a guy who's saying what I already believe, and therefore I'm going to get on the Trump bandwagon. You know what I mean?
What did you tell me the other day when you were in South Carolina or something, and you're like, hey, you would really hate it here. Your head would blow up. Fox News is on in every airport lobby.
Yeah.
I think that it would be a mistake not to take into full account a very large piece of this puzzle is that organization and what has changed in that same 10 or 15 year period. So, I don't want to give Fox News more credit than it deserves, but it is a big part of this problem, and it has done a lot to move people into their respective camps and destroy what was a national news kind of ethic, right? And so I think that has really fucked things up. And
we talked about that too, and I think we referenced what was it, the arbiter of truth and the idea of news and newscasting in the middle of the century and the consistency of the messaging, of course. But I don't know. I haven't researched it. I don't know how this whole thing evolved. I read another report the other day that people, we talk a lot about people moving and moving out of California and moving to other places. But I read another story that suggested that most people are moving to places that share similar political ideas that they have. So it's not just escaping one place, it's actually going to a place that they believe shares the same political values that they do.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, why would you make a move to a situation that isn't better than the one you're already in as you see it?
Right. And so aren't we really saying that as the country grows and evolves, and I believe it's a numbers thing, the more people you have, it's less likely that you're going to get all those people to agree. There's just too many of us to have the same political thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, I don't, and I'm not expressing any desire for the variance of political ideas to be more homogenous or something, but so let's look at what's happened, right? The Trump base and the right-wing politicians and the Tucker Carlsons and the Jeff Hawleys and the these Ted Cruz's, these people, this is not a simple disagreement. Hey, I have a conservative viewpoint of how things should go and you have a more liberal viewpoint. That's not what this is. Those people and organizations and things that I just mentioned have been shaped on purpose by a correlated strategy of like-minded people. And it's not for the good of the country. It's for their own aggrandizement. Listen, Fox News, national, prominence. I mean, you're the one that told me they're in every airport around the country. Here's the thing, right? Why does an organization that once was a fairly normal news organization, like the other ones that were there, why do they change so much? What changed that made them take off the reins on muckrakers like Tucker Carlson and Dr. Laura? It's because
is it not Dr. Laura?
Well, what is it? Yeah, it's Laura Ingraham,
yeah.
Right? So here's the reason. I mean, I know we talked about this before, but I want to make sure people don't forget it. There's a limited time for advertising-based opinion news to be a profit generator for an organization like or a mogul like Rupert Murdoch. It's going to go away. Fox News won't always be there. The damage they do may remain, but between now and the time that there's not a prominent Fox News organization, where people like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham and all the rest of these idiots, Sean Hannity and stuff, those news sources are going to go behind a paywall so that they are not beholden to advertisers, right?
That's already happening,
right? Obviously,
but I think you kind of teased this. How did we get here? How did they get where they are, like a Fox News? And I think it's a matter of
let you turn them loose.
I think it's finding your audience. And you brought this up with regard to Trump and the whole build the wall thing, that was something that he started saying, not from the very beginning. And then he realized that really resonated with what became his base, and it became a rallying cry. But that wasn't something he thought of in the Trump Tower, like, I really got to run for president to fix this problem. He started saying it, and then an audience developed, and then that became one of his messaging points, his rallying cries. I think the same is true with Fox News, that over time, you're advertising, medications for dick pills, and you got a crank neck, so you need the MyPillow guy, and the audience comes out and resonates with the messaging, God. And then that's all they begin to talk about.
Well,
when did the idea of partisan news channels really develop?
with Fox News.
Yeah, but even then, it wasn't with the origin of Fox News. Day one.
It didn't really exist before Fox News. I mean, there's a lot that's happened in this time period, right? Broadcast television, news delivery has changed so significantly. 24-hour news didn't exist 20 years ago or whatever it was. I don't know.
Wasn't CNN one of the first to do that?
It was the first. Yeah, it was the first. And
that didn't work so well for them.
Yeah, and frankly, none of it's good for. I mean, I think Fox News is literally criminally negligent for the damage they're doing to the society. But and the hate and the nonsense and listen, they allow these pieces of shit like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, at all these opinion people, they have no news credibility whatsoever.
Well, it's not like they're allowing them; they're paying them.
No, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, they're paying them, but they're turning them loose. They've taken off all the constraints. They have abandoned their responsibility as a publishing company and said, just do whatever you want, just generate advertising revenue. That's it. They don't care.
But as long as you know that, again, what's the issue there?
Because it is causing devastating damage to the
But you know what else does that?
country.
Any other type of any form of entertainment. Like the Fast and the Furious movies. They're terrible movies. And there's like 12 of them. If you watch Fast and the Furious movies, it will rot your brain.
Well,
if you suffer through 12 of them or however many of them there are.
You know, I get it. I know I'm too serious about this, but I think that the lack of acknowledgement of how dangerous this has become and how big a role that Rupert Murdoch, who's not American, right, and does not give one shit about our society or the success of this country, and I think that we need to understand this better and acknowledge it, right? Not so everybody can be the same, but so that I don't know, Travis. You know, I told myself today that there are so many things on the burner that, you know, I'm not going to get too wrapped up. So let me just say, I mean, I've said it a bunch of times. Everybody knows now what I think Fox News is and the problems with it. I guess the ray of sunshine for me is it's going to change. That's going to go away. Broadcast television is going to have less and less impact on things. And as long as there's free television, you're going to see it in the terminals, in the things, right?
I don't disagree with you as to what Fox News is. I just disagree with what should be done about it.
Well, I mean, I'm not really telling you what should be done. I'm trying to get people to have an understanding and accept the fact that whatever it is, it's malevolent and it's not.
And I think people already know that. I think the people who don't watch Fox News believe that it's just that. And I think the people who do watch Fox News are going there to get their fix of what they want to see and hear.
I agree with that too. But you know, it's how much of it, it's how accessible it is. It's a whole bunch of stuff, and it doesn't go from being, you know, news delivery to propaganda, malevolent propaganda designed to destroy our society overnight. It's been a slow 10, 15-year transition at Fox News, exacerbated since Roger Ailes left the program. That lunatic was the only one that was holding back the Tucker Carlsons and the Laura Ingraham and the Sean Hannitys from the ridiculous shit that they now say on that channel on a nightly basis. I mean, I don't listen to it. I know examples of it, so I know what I'm saying is true, but we're not listening. I mean, you don't listen to it, do you?
No, I don't listen to it and I don't watch it. But see, the thing is, they're going to put on people who say the things that their base wants to hear, like abortion, right? They're going to interview senators that are in favor of the Texas abortion ban, and they're going to interview those people and give them a platform, and so many other examples like that.
At any given moment, I can flip on Fox News when one of those 3 or 4 people we're talking about is on there, and the guest they have sitting next to him is some guy out of nowhere that has some theory about how Hillary Clinton is the head of a worldwide child-eating cabal. Right? I mean, and it never fails. I mean, I run this experiment frequently. All right, who's Sean Hannity talking to? I'd like to welcome my guest tonight, Dr. Professor Dick Wad, and he is the author of a theory of the Clinton effect on, you know, pedophilia.
Because remember, they don't have the ball right now. They're playing defense. So their only goal, and what I mean by that is their party is not in office in the White House. So their only goal during these 4 years, or the 2 years leading up to the midterms, is to convince their base that the Democrats are evil and will eat their babies. And therefore, you have to do everything you can to be a good Republican and come out and vote when it's time.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, you know, in any situation, there's always a case to be made for the ends justify the means, and that's what you have to think about with these things. So that's kind of a bummer.
What would you have? You said something about Rupert Murdoch is not even American. Should
He's
we
Australian.
not? I know. Should we not allow him to own this corporation? Is that what you're saying? Because he's not American?
I mean, I would say that a great deal of people that are enmeshed in Fox News and their brand of propaganda don't know who he is. They didn't know who Roger Ailes was. They don't know who Rupert Murdoch is. They don't know the history.
Does it matter, though?
Yeah, it matters.
Why?
Because those people, if you're a Fox News watcher, that's all you watch, right? You don't watch the nightly news. You don't watch the 247 nightly news, right? Which still has kind of the middle of the road, news delivery situation. You sure as hell don't watch MSNBC, and no reason why you should. But you also don't know anything about this machine that you're turning your mind over to on a day in, day out basis. I mean, these people that are into this, they run it 24 hours a day. They don't watch anything else.
But what difference does it make? If you're tuning in and you like what you hear and see, you're going to go back tomorrow. You don't really think about the machine behind it. You just know that I got what I needed out of that hour, and I'm going to go check it out again tomorrow.
I get that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The ends justify the means. I mean, for Republican political operatives, elected officials, campaign operators, whatever, they apparently do not care about anything except what they think is going to drive Republican voters to the polls. And in the pursuit of that goal, which I agree with you is their sole goal, they have no moral compass. It doesn't matter to them how many lies they tell. And there is no moral equivalency between that and the Democrats. It's not the same. I don't care how many times and I don't know if you're saying this, I don't care how many times people want to say it. There's no moral equivalency between the two sides.
But what I think is actually happening is the people who are listening and watching Fox News don't take it as lies, because to them it's repeating what they believe to be truth. So that's validating their truth.
The difference is that the other side of that story that you like to point out is available to anybody who wants it. They have not thrown off the yoke of telling the truth to further every liberal reporter, every Democratic operator wants to win elections too, but they are not allowing themselves or their party to tell straight up lies and say it's okay.
Yeah, mostly that's true. That's true.
Okay. Well, that's the best I'm going to get out of you. So,
but I don't know, man. It's so let me circle this all the way back. Let me Jen Psaki this back.
Circle back, brother.
To the Ukraine and the issues in this country. Do you see Ukraine and the crisis there derailing any of our domestic political issues, Biden's plans? We still have Supreme Court things going on. There's all kinds of legislation about banning lawmakers of trading stocks, and there's things in the works. Do you see this as a distraction or a derailment?
I think the Olympics was a distraction. I think
you watched it.
This is a catastrophe. One of the reasons I watched it, even though I in retrospect, I wish I had not supported that by doing that, but I guess this is going to be a terrible thing. This is going to be ground war in Europe is just it was unimaginable until very recently, and I think that we've played a significant role in making this happen, right, and allowing it to happen. If our position in Europe through NATO had not been weakened to the point that it was, this would not have been able to happen. Is it stronger now? Is the Biden administration doing a good job of shoring up the alliance? It looks like they are, and we'll have to see. I don't fully trust Europeans, but
I don't know. Some of the allies are coming out and saying and doing the right thing.
Listen,
like the Germans.
Germany killed that pipeline.
Exactly, which is directly going to negatively impact their people on and heating expenses.
It's going to negatively affect us too. It's going to limit the amount of oil in the market, and that's going to drive the price up. I mean, and for us,
I know.
So, I mean, you can't.
You're
not going to be able to take moral high ground on issues of this type and be completely free of any consequences. So, I mean, if Americans aren't willing, and we suck at sacrifice, right? I mean, you can say whatever you want about how
we
people,
do now.
We do now. I mean,
We haven't always.
Yeah, in the Second World War, there was a lot of pulling together and stuff. Maybe that'll come back, maybe it won't. But currently, we suck at it.
Would you take an actual World War III if it meant we became more, I don't know, unified, if that's the word?
Well,
if it developed a new generation
I'm going to
of
tell you something. I heard
patriots.
I read something today about how there's a possibility, right? There's a possibility that Putin may be poking. I mean, we like to think of them as the bear because that's kind of their thing, you know. The bear,
Who, the
wolf.
Russians are the bear?
The bear, the wolf, or whatever the fuck, was some kind of horrible fanged predator, right? That's what they think they are. You know, militarily, we're still vastly superior to the Soviet Union, from what I understand.
Let's test that shit out.
Well, here's the thing. Are they poking a sleeping giant that will at some point get fed up and just tear the shit out of everybody around them? I mean, I heard something about some police training today, and an analogy that I could easily see in this situation. The male lion on the savannah and the females and the cubs are fucking with them and clawing at him, and the hyenas are coming up and getting close, and he doesn't really do anything, and the hyenas get more and more bold, and then eventually the male lion just goes on a tear and kills everybody, right? And then says, okay, now you understand, right? So could that be us? It could be us, right? Anybody that thinks it couldn't needs to rethink it. I mean, we destroyed and brought down the government in Iraq on false information that everybody and their mother knew was false. I knew it. I'm not even.
Your people didn't know. We've talked about that.
I'm not in the defense administration.
Your people saw more information than you did.
Travis, it's not about blame. That you're missing the point. You don't think something can happen, right? But it can, right? And the Democrats, who I would love to think would be the cooler heads, say, hey, cool down. We're not going to have a war in Iraq on this weak information. No, they joined the party just like everybody else. All of America wanted revenge for 9/11. That's why we had that war.
But that's why we had the war in Afghanistan
and Iraq. It's all the same. It's all the same. Nobody believed there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. We just wanted to kick some ass on a Middle Eastern country, and the people in this country gave their tacit approval to Bush to do it, and we did it. So my point is, the Democrats didn't stop that from happening. And so, unless you're on record as being a senator or a congressperson that voted against that, then you can't say shit. But here's the truth. If you don't think that this could trigger World War III, it's very possible. And if I'm kind of hoping Putin is as smart as I give him credit for, and he doesn't push this country over a certain line, because the assets are there. I mean, they are there. So when he says he's worried about his national security, he's worried about it because he knows what he would like to try to get away with. And he's pretty sure that in the process of that, at some point, we're going to say enough, and NATO's going to move on him. And then he's going to be able to say, I told you so. NATO's the aggressor here. I don't give a shit about any of that. I'm just saying, when that happens, we're in another world war. And would I take that? What was the question? Would I take that world war over what?
Would you take it if it got us to the point where we became, in this country anyway, more unified, more patriotic?
That's the point I was trying to make. You made me think of this because the point of this is a country that thrives on a war footing, right?
Our country.
Yeah. When we go to war footing, industry, capitalism, everything happens. Everybody makes money. Everybody gets richer. Everybody stays involved. Everybody gets more united. It's true. And so would I take that? I don't think I can morally say that I would be okay with third world war, because I think the possible results are cataclysmic, and they certainly involve nuclear weapons, right? One step into Belarus, and you're going to see nuclear weapons. So, and then I don't know what happens, right? I mean, I don't know. I think that, so this is serious stuff, right? I think it's going to play out like most political scenarios play out. I mean, I was watching 1883, the prequel to
Yellowstone.
And they're trying to cross the Brazos River with this wagon train, right? And so one of the sayings was, hey, here's how it happens. When you're crossing the river, cool heads get to the other side. Hot heads drowned. And so I think it's very applicable to this situation. Everybody needs to, I mean, we are where we are, and there's a whole bunch of blame to go around. And I think that there's probably room for varying opinions about why we're here. Anybody who doesn't see Putin as the sole aggressor in this isn't looking. And so when you hear
that's clearly the case.
Yeah, when you hear that nonsense and drivel on Fox News or whatever, you just have to know what it is. And but now we're here, and now we got to figure it out. So, yeah, I hope it's not a World War III. I mean,
is Rupert Murdoch allowed to fight in a ground war if the U.S. goes to war because he's not a U.S. citizen?
I haven't seen a picture of him in a long time. My mental image of him is he's a big, fat, white guy in his 70s or older. I don't know. He's mega rich. I think he's Australian.
Yeah, he's foreign. I forget what he is.
Yeah, I mean Rupert. So
I don't know. This whole thing is, who knows how this is going to develop? Right? Is the Biden administration going to draw a line in the sand? Right? What's the analogy? Their red line.
Yeah.
Are they going to establish one that if it's crossed, then we would commit troops?
I
in
think
there?
Obama and the red line in Syria is a lesson that has not been lost on anybody.
Yeah,
I have not heard that. I have not heard a president use that term since.
Yeah, you shouldn't,
including Trump. Which, I think. I mean, I just think that you can't. I mean, unless you're willing to back it up, right?
Well, and that's the thing. Even if you are willing to back it up, I think people should understand. This maybe goes to your point about cooler heads prevailing. In the geopolitical forces around the world, you should reserve the right to change and to change your position, to go back on a comment that you said if it means peace and security. You shouldn't just always be like, well, I told these fuckers if they crossed the line we were coming in, and that's it. I made a promise.
I'm coming in no matter what.
Yeah, you got to be able to say, okay, well, let's is there another solution now? Can we get there another way? And I don't know, and we'll see how this develops. We'll see if there's another.
Had Obama followed through with the red line threat regarding Syria, we'd still be there,
right?
Mired in a civil war of a Middle Eastern country backed by Russia.
So is this really just we got out of Afghanistan and we need to have further stimulus on the economy? So we're fabricating a war so that everybody can get rich?
We're not fabricating a war.
Not we, but we're going to find ourselves in war so that we can prime the pump.
I think that if Putin pushes this country to a war footing, it's going to be catastrophic for the world. I mean, because we have massive military capability, and all the nonsensical right-wing rhetoric to the side.
Go back to what I said in the beginning.
Nothing has changed since Joe Biden became president. We had it before him. We have it now. We'll have it later. There's the military-industrial complex is its own machine, and it's not tied to who's in power.
And you know who is the leader of that machine and what we need now more than anything?
Who? What?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Well, I think that you have, as always, solutionary. You'll come up with a solution. Send in the what is it? Mission Impossible Force? The MI.
I don't know. There's Delta Force. Pick a agency, but I just want to know that there's some secret shit happening where we drop down on helicopters at night.
Yeah, I want to hear that music. Dun 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 dun.
Exactly.
I want to hear that in the background. They should just put it in the background of the news.
I want to be watching a Hollywood blockbuster about this in 3 years' time from now, where we tell the story. I don't know who you're going to cast in that. Maybe The Rock. And
Tom Cruise has he has a pact with the devil, so he'll still be young enough and everything. But
that's true.
It doesn't matter. 10 years from now, he can still be playing because he's going to live till 90 or something and look the same. Then he's going to pop off.
Well, a lot of people live till 90.
Yeah, but he's going to look like Tom Cruise at 50.
I don't know, maybe. Is he 50?
Oh, I think he's more than 50. Yeah, I think he's in his mid-50s, I think.
Well, 50 is the new 30.
I guess. I'll tell you what it ain't. It ain't 65.
Is that what you are?
Yeah.
I thought you were 66.
No, 65.
Well, 66 this year.
Yeah, I will be 66.
Right. I'm not trying to fast forward your age here.
Yeah, thanks. I don't need any help at all with that. So, all right. Well, I hope we didn't scare anybody.
No. Well, listen, this is, what can you say? Things are developing rapidly. We like to keep our finger on the pulse and sometimes also on the trigger. And we report it as it happens. I mean,
that's what's going on today, folks.
Yeah. I don't know what our jobs are, but I like to think of us as interpreting what we're seeing out there. We've always said that we are having the same conversations that we believe people are having across the country and or should have.
Yeah, should have.
And, we're seeing data in real time and we're responding to it.
I don't know. This could be egotistical. I don't think there's as many people having this conversation with people that have. I mean, morally, we're pretty aligned, but we do have different opinions on things, and so we can discuss a variety of subjects that we don't appear to agree on without degenerating into a problem most of the time, unless I lose my shit. And I think that's good. I hope more people are having these kind of conversations. I just want people to talk about things and not accept everything, without question, just because that's the rabbit hole you've gone into, Fox News or MSNBC or whatever. Talk about stuff. Try to understand. Try to look at the back end of things and see what are the motivations that cause these world events to happen. Nothing happening in Ukraine or the Donbass or Kyiv or any of these places that we're hearing about. Kyiv.
I'm disappointed in that too. How many? Is it Kyiv or Kiev?
It's however you want to say it.
Tomato.
Yeah, that's right.
I've been saying Kiev.
Much like we heard yesterday about a common word that we've been pronouncing two ways for 30 years. Nothing in those situations is as it's being portrayed by the Russian side of this, by Putin and his government, and it just isn't. So, I mean, how you can have a significant number of people that are on the conservative side of politics in this country support commentators that put out this babble about Putin's real intentions and then somehow, like you mentioned before, try to use it against the Biden administration. I mean, it's just I think that there was a time where that just wouldn't have happened. I mean,
maybe they're just afraid of losing their conduit to the other, beliefs that they have. They have to support their talking heads at all costs, because if they don't, then that means the other things that their talking heads say, aren't true also.
Well, I mean, how long the three big ones that we've been talking about go on unbridled? I don't know. Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham. How long they remain, on Fox News and reaching the type of audience that they're reaching with the numbers that they're reaching, which is shrinking, not growing. That's a good thing. But
again,
it's more rapidly.
They will stay on as long as it's commercially viable to do so.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: they are rapidly that viewership base is rapidly loyal to the advertisers that they see while watching these shows, and so. That's the sole drive.
That's how they should stay.
If you want to know why Fox News allows this to happen, that's the only reason. There's no real political conviction in that organization. Rupert Murdoch is neither a conservative nor a liberal. He's a
capitalist, and that's the way it should be. And that's why I'm
more carpetbagger than capitalist, but
I'm in favor of letting these platforms stay open, letting people have as much time as possible to say anything they want to say, because at some point, if they say something you don't agree with, if they cross a line, then that's people's opportunity to jump off.
I don't think you're in any danger of having any platform. I mean, there hasn't been one shut down yet, so I don't, the talk is premature about about that because it's never happened in this country. I mean, when you're talking about Western-based news media, an individual like Trump who can't follow the rules of a privately run company.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it's a private. But again, there are discussions.
Yeah, if he can't operate according to the rules of an existing platform, he's free to take his $10 billion that he doesn't really have and start his own company.
I'm okay with a Twitter or anybody else saying, we don't like your hair. You can't be on our place. It's our house, our rules. Yeah. I'm okay with all that.
We don't want to promote comb-overs.
Right. We want people to age gracefully and naturally.
Oh, my God.
But there are legislators in this country who want to break up Facebook, and I'm not okay with dismantling corporations because you're afraid that they're not responsibly handling communication. I don't think that's the answer.
I don't think that would be the reason. I mean, there's a good chance they get broke up sooner or later, but the reason you just stated won't be the reason. I mean, it'll be acting illegally as a monopoly or something like that.
It'll be the Al Capone of takedowns, where we'll use the tax loophole to get ultimately what we wanted.
You know what? When you're running an organized crime syndicate, it's called RICO.
Exactly.
That's what's going to bring Trump down. Eventually, they're going to press RICO charges on his organization, and then we'll see who inside that organization. And again, how old is Trump now? 99?
No, I think he's like 75.
Okay,
something like that.
75. Rudy Giuliani. I mean, do we care if they go to prison? I don't really care. I just want their.
But we can't have Democrats saying we need to have fewer people in prison and then put octogenarians in prison.
I agree with that. But I would love to see the kids, and I'm pretty sure that Eric and what's the other guy's name? Don Jr.
Yeah.
They're probably going to end up there.
We can't put all the kids in prison. They don't have bikinis in prison.
She's not going to prison, so the daughter's not going.
We need her to be out, the public-facing face of Trump.
She might be out of a job, but because I think that we're not that far away from the Trump organization as we know it disappearing. It's a pretty weak house of cards.
It's all it's going to do is rebrand like Facebook. It's going to be Meta Trump or something.
I don't know. Mega Trump. All right.
We had enough fun today, my friend.
That was a good one. Good to talk to everybody. Hopefully it was good to be heard.
It was good to be heard, good to be seen.
Yep.
Until next time, Dr.
Right.
Watkins.
Thanks.